kiss for you.
Welcome back to episode 3 of Out of Context. If you're new, basically Out of Context is a series where I look at different products throughout time and see how they line up to today's kind of standards and all that kind of stuff in terms of if I hand someone this product, do they think it's interesting? Do they think it's cool? Do they know a lot about it? Are they interested in the technology without me needing to explain that to them? So first example, folding phones. Nowadays, if I hand someone a folding phone, they might say, oh yeah, you know, it folds, it's cool, but to me, it's made of plastic. There's probably durability issues. I might buy it if someone like Apple made it, but really it's not for me kind of thing, right? I would consider that a failure because in order for them to understand, you know, all the stuff about how cool the hinge is and all the technology that goes into it, I'd have to explain that. And so I really ultimately determine at the end, was this a success? And so for 3D TVs, the start off is, no, it's not a success. But I think for the majority of people that weren't into this at the time, they might be wondering, why didn't 3D TVs work? Because to them, they saw Avatar, they saw, you know, all the 3D movies at the time with the glasses. They're like, wow, that's pretty cool. I heard, you know, 3D TVs were a thing. What happened to them? Why aren't they, you know, big anymore? That kind of stuff. And so if I try to remove context, if I'm a person that doesn't know anything about this and is just trying to understand kind of what happened to 3D TVs, and the best sort of starting point I can get is the marketing. The marketing for 3D TVs, as you can kind of see here, was a little, well, skeptical to say the least. So the primary way that 3D TVs, at least to an outsider, were marketed were through images like this that had very defined features. You'd have the TV, you'd have a character or a ball or some kind of thing jumping out of the TV, and you'd be like, whoa, 3D, right? That's what you see on this Mitsubishi TV. That's what you'll see on this TV here with the dinosaur. And so all these were marketed as basically, hey, you can watch these incredible sports and these incredible, you know, 3D movies, and it feels like it's going to pop out of the screen and be crazy, right? That was kind of where it was primarily marketed. And this is a great image, actually. This image really showcases the reality, and that is the fact that, well, it seems like something like this where it's popping out of the screen. You only really see that in, you know, the Disney 3D rides or Avatar, and specifically when 3D was really big because of Avatar and because of the Disney stuff that at the time was really popular, right? The Aladdin coming out and the little thing or some other, you know, 4D kind of stuff. That was really what people were envisioning, and you know that's what it's marketed like, right? These are marketed like that's actually what you're going to experience. And instead of that, it was much more so this kind of blurry mishmash where not only did you need a 3D TV, but you needed a lot of the time a 3D Blu-ray player to be able to play those 3D movies, and you need 3D glasses because right now this is obviously blurred because it's stereoscopic, so that's what the glasses are for, right? They merge red and blue and they kind of make it 3D. But this is what it looked like. And so it didn't look like this, or, you know, any of those other things. It looked like this. It looked like this very blurry, very not super in focus image. You put glasses on and it would kind of maybe better look like 3D. It did not look like the Disney one, and it certainly didn't look like Avatar. Because a lay person would see this and be like, oh, I remember this from Disney, or I remember this from Avatar. Why isn't the 3D in my TV that I bought a 3D TV and all this stuff for, why doesn't it look like that? And I could explain why, and I have all these tabs open to do that. So what you end up realizing very quickly with these 3D TVs is there's not a lot of them. These are very expensive things. These are very complicated processes to make. And while the demand seems high, it's very quickly going to diminish down to something that is almost non-existent. And I think the best example that we can show that, you know, it's not super big, or it was supposed to be big and then not super big, is the fact that LG, Samsung, Sony, and Philips were intending to increase their 3D TV offering with plans to make 3D TV sales account for over 50% of their respective TV distribution offering in 2012. This was massive. People were getting ready for 3D, like, oh wow, this is great. We're going to have all this stuff. It's going to look crazy. And then obviously when people got it, they were, you know, a little disappointed and all that. And we can really see what was interesting is from the times, right? Because we have the internet now and we're able to kind of document things at a much longer distance. We have a lot of people sort of viewing 3D for the first time. This is a blog from a person that got 3D TV, and they're like, super hyped for it and all that. And they were pretty happy with it, right? And they, talked about, oh my God, I've been watching 3D in the cinema, and it was just okay. And, now I'm amazed at the quality of this TV and all that. And one thing that kind of caught my eye, because while I was interested in 3D TVs, we never had one, and so I kind of knew roughly a little bit about it. A main factor, not only did you need a 3D TV and all that, a Blu-ray player, but you needed glasses. And a lot of the time, these glasses were either the standard, red and blue ones, or they were very specific glasses that were uncomfortable and you needed to charge them with a battery. And they didn't really work if you weren't using them on the TV. Like, you need to be on at the TV at a certain angle in order for this to work. And a lot of the time, it just didn't, and, batteries and charging and all that. And so these were very specific experiences. This person liked it and liked the idea behind the 3D. You go to other reviewers also mentioning the fact that you need these glasses and that they need to be charged and all that. And so you really get this sense that all of a sudden you go from 50% of their TV distribution in 2012 wants these 3D TVs to these may not be kind of ready. I don't know if they're really that special. And that really hits home when you look at the distribution of 3D content. Now, a lot of people had this idea that 3D TVs kind of, fell off. Where is it, right? 3D TVs fell off because there wasn't enough programming to justify it. I actually argue something different. There was a lot of sports content and there was a lot of movie content that was 3D. The issue was when people saw something like Avatar or Disney, they saw very specific, very focused camera technology that made everyone believe this is what 3D is. That is not what 3D is. That is specifically what fusion camera systems, special James Cameron cameras that are able to do in 3D and, double frame rate and all that. That's what that is. Versus something like Bolt, right? The Disney thing in 2008 was digital 3D. Flying to the Moon, digital 3D. We have a lot of the ones up here, right? Coraline, digital 3D. Monsters vs. Aliens, digital 3D. I saw that in 3D, I believe. Up, digital 3D. These are, I wonder if I can find it. Digital 3D is a very bad representation of 3D because it doesn't look like 3D. It just kind of looks very, how do I describe it? It's not like this, right? This is like a billboard. It's showing out. It's very, it doesn't have a ton of motion to it. It doesn't like shift that well. It's really just a factor of, it comes out of the screen a little bit, right? Think Spy Kids or think Shorts. It was some kind of Shorts compilation that was in 3D I remember watching, and it had the stupid ping pong ball, right? And it was like bouncing ping pong back and forth kind of thing into the face of the camera. And that was, really big and all that. And really that was a signifier. And it was like, he had stopped the movie and it scratch, sniff kind of thing. That was really a signifier that 3D TVs aren't going to be this crazy thing. Yeah, this thing. Shorts, the adventure of the... And that was really a 4D film, right? You had the 3D and it wasn't that good. And that was really the experience that a lot of people had with 3D, me included. I watched 3D as well as Monsters vs. Aliens 3D, and obviously Monsters vs. Aliens wasn't a good movie, and Shorts wasn't a good movie, so that might have had something to do with it. But really the 3D ended up being kind of a distraction. And to a lot of people, that's kind of what started to happen, is things started being a distraction instead of like a really cool event. It wasn't, I mean, we saw Avatar 2 in 3D and like a Dolby Cinema thing, and that was incredible, but that was incredible because it had the sound and it had the special glasses and it had obviously the 3D camera tech. Nothing like that really existed beyond that capacity. And that's when you start to realize, right? That's when people start complaining. That's when you have this USA Today article talking about a variety of things with the TV and how, it wasn't that good and all that, and it was, too big and it took a bunch of power and all this wasn't that interesting, and that there wasn't a ton of 3D content, and a lot of that's mainly just, the 3D content in terms of actual 3D versus like originally in 2D, but now in 3D, kind of 3D. And so you get a lot of that, and one thing that I kind of want to mention is that stuff like VR was a big kind of pushing point to where, hey, maybe 3D can come back, because VR was this strap a headset to your face, and now we have this 3D virtual experience that TVs couldn't provide, right? There's no way for TVs to provide that experience, and so all of a sudden, instead of being 3D TVs, that's the big thing, and you need a box and all that, just put a 3D headset on, put an Oculus Rift or HTC Vive on, and experience the 3D world and attempt to watch 3D movies. And so that really became kind of the start of that whole transition, because was it 2016 was the Rift? Was the Rift 2016? Yes, the Rift arriving at the end of 2016, March 2016. So yeah, it was the 2016 Rift there, as well as the HTC Vive was 2016, and you could watch 3D movies, and people did, and that was really a turning point, because this I don't believe was that expensive. It was like, you know, what, $500. The original Rift launch price, was it like $600, $500, $600? Yeah. It was $600. I think the Vive was a little more expensive, like $700. But that was about the amount of a TV. But you not only needed, again, a TV, but you also had a Blu-ray player in the movies. And so if you were going to, between the two, want 3D technology, you were going to get the new virtual reality headset where you could play games as well as watch movies and shows. And you would buy this because it was the new thing with all this crazy tech in it, versus a 3D TV, which you also need all this other stuff. And, it, you know, because it's a TV, it's not super useful for other things that aren't specifically that, because you won't buy a 3D TV if you don't want 3D. So then it became this decision of you're probably going to get a Rift, right? If you're enthusiastic enough about 3D, you're going to get the Rift, because it's also going to give you 3D as well as play games, as well as be this new technology that's super interesting. And that also ultimately leads to something, right? This technology here doesn't stay stagnant. It leads to, you know, better versions of virtual reality in the future, as I've talked about pretty extensively. And so you really get this interesting evolution between people being really excited for it, you know, really ready to immerse their lives in this 3D, realizing it's not that good from a variety of sources, or realizing it's pretty good, but there's just really not enough to capture what people thought 3D was supposed to be. You can see that in the movies and the titles that released, a lot of kid stuff, a lot of animated stuff, a lot of things specifically made for 3D, right, as just like shorts or something like that. And so that kind of culminates in the people that are interested in this stuff just moving on. And that really hurts 3D along the way, which, you know, leads pretty soon after in 2017 to them abandoning 3D pretty much entirely, but there's obviously no rumblings that it's going to come back in some way, because obviously whenever a new Avatar comes out, everyone's like, oh my god, 3D, and we repeat the process again by not understanding that this 3D is the same issue that we're going to have this time as it was last time, which is these are special camera things, and you don't realize that, so you're going to go out and buy all this stuff again just to realize, oh no, this sucks. So yeah. And so from an out of context perspective, if you didn't know all this and you didn't, you know, have all that in your brain, you'll probably remember 3D as the cool thing Avatar did, and then it never really took off. So to me, that doesn't succeed, right? I can't hand someone a 3D TV now and then be like, wow, buy it kind of thing, because they've seen Avatar and they've a lot of the time experienced, you know, the Rift headsets and more modern virtual reality headsets, and so that's not going to really interest them too much.